Good morning. Learning as a chus for Shlema Filan Chai Basarach and as a Ilu Neshama for Meir ben Elazar. We had seen a brisa that started in Amud Aleph. I'm just going to review it. It'll take a minute, and it's just to remind ourselves of there are four simanim of a kosher or non-kosher animal. They're the same simanim. If they're present, then it's kosher. If they're not present, they're not kosher. So there's etzba, right? That it has an extra claw. Etzba yisera, zefek. It has a crop. Kurkavana niklaf. Its gizzard can be peeled. V'dairis v'oichel. If Dairis v'oichel is a siman of trephus, tarfus. So if it doesn't have the etzba and it doesn't have the zefek and its kurbani is not niklaf and it's dairis v'oichel, all these things, that dairis is a clause to eat, all these things are simanim that it's a treifa animal. Now, in the Mishnah, we said if it has any one of these simanim, unless we know that it's one of the animals that are listed in the Torah, the 24 animals that are listed, then it's going to be kosher. But the exception to that is, I'm sorry?
So it's going to be kosher even if it has one of those wrong.
Even if it has three of those wrong, except for the dairis v'oichel. Anything that's dairis v'oichel, the Mishnah said, that's always going to be treif. So even if it has all three kosher, and that one not kosher, it's going to be not kosher. But outside of that, it's going to be kosher. Okay, I guess we'll skip we won't go through the Shakavataya, but we said a nesher, which is some kind of eagle, has no kosher simanim. Then we said the Paris va'oznia have one of these simanim. These are two animals that have one kosher siman, but they're not kosher. They have the Erev that has two kosher simanim. And the rest of the list have three kosher simanim. Okay. So we said it. So we're going to start. So we're going to start from on Samach Aleph on the Beis, about 9 lines down. So we said in the Brisa, so we said that Torah had to say Nesher, because otherwise I would have said that if it has a single, only one siman of kashrus, that it's going to be kosher, it's because the Torah wrote a Nesher which has 0. Torah says the Nesher is not possible. It's possible if one that has even a single siman of kashrus is going to be possible, then you wouldn't have to write the Nesher. So Gemara says, "Alavach yavamina leif mi peres vaznia." If not for that, I would have learned out from the peres vaznia that just one siman is enough. One siman of kashrus is that something with one siman is not kosher. In fact, Gemara, how would I learn that out? Havale peres vaznia shnei ksuvna ban kecha. Peres and oznia are two separate birds that each have only one siman, and therefore there would be two limudim that both come to say the same thing, which you don't learn out from. So therefore, the Gemara asks, why do I need the Nesher? Because I couldn't learn out from the Paris Vaznia that would be not kosher with just a single siman kashrus. So Gemara, because it's Shnei Ksura Ban Kechad. So Gemara, Gmiri de'ika b'hai leka b'hai vo'ika b'hai leka b'hai. The Gemara answers that although it's true that both the Paris and Osniya have a single kosher siman, it's not the same kosher siman. So I would have thought that Um, and as we'll see, one of those simonim is not found by any other. The Rishonim explained that one of those simonim is not found by any other non-kosher animal. So if we wouldn't have said that, they were both needed, and they're not shnei ksuvim habon ka'echad. So you would learn out from them that a single siman would be pasul. Therefore, we needed nesher to tell you not like that. No, if it has a single siman of kashrus, it's going to be kosher. Michti. Esrim v'arba oifis tmein happen. There are 24 oifis tmein that the Torah lists. Iafsher dechad eka b'hanach le'eka b'hani. Well, it says it doesn't make sense that out of all 24, there's none that don't have one the simonim of those two. That means if you have the Erev that has two, and then you have all these 24 that have a variety of simonim, it can't be that the Paris has one simon of kashrus, the Osnia has a second simon of kashrus, and then the other 20, 21 really, because the Nesher has no simonim, and that's not included. But the other 21 don't have any of the same as the Paris of Osnia. They have all three. So therefore it's going to turn out that they have the same simonim, the same simone kashrus as both the Paris was, or the same simone, I'm sorry, not the simonim kashrus, the simone of tarfus that they do, of the Paris Osnia, and have a lushnei ksuva banka echad. And for the Gemara Gemiri, Esem Rabba Oifis Tmein Hava. There are 24 simonim, va'arba simonim, and there are 4 simonim. Tlasa Hadri Bekulu, 3 of them, 3 of the simoni kashrus. Hadri Bekula are on all of them. How is that? Esem Mehem Shloisha Shloisha. 20 of them have 3 of the simoni kashrus. Utrei ba'erev. And those from those 3, let's just count them as simonim 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's say simonim 1, 2, and 3 that are all 20 of the birds have 3 simonim of kashrus, and 4 it's not kosher. So. And then the Erev has 2 out of 1, 2, and 3. Chad beperes, and 1 is by the Paris. V'chad b'azniya. D'isa b'ha lesa b'ha. And the 4, the simon 4 is either in the Paris v'azniya. That's the unique one, and that's the one that we said before that makes the Paris v'azniya not shnei ksubin habon ka'echad. That's a melamdim. So Mao de Tema Leilif Mina. Let's say whichever one, the Paris Vosnia, has that siman 4 as a siman of non-kashrus. Kasarachwan and Nesher, let's say Kolu Doi Techel, Haikadis Lechad, Achel. So we're basically just going through the analysis of answering the question of why it's like Shnei Ksubin Habon Kechad, because one of the Paris Vosnia has a unique siman tarfus that none of the other birds have. Therefore, we need to say both the Paris Vosnia. We would have just said one of them. I would say it has the same siman tarfus as all the others. It's coming to tell you that also this siman tarfus will make it not kosher. In fact, the Gemara now going to the opposite. Ela Torah in the case of Rachmana Lamali. So what did the Torah have to say that the Torah are kosher? If we listed everything that's not kosher, so everything that's left is kosher. It's coming to tell you not only is it kosher, but also that it could be brought as a carbon.
At the end of the day here, basically, if it's not written as a treifa, that it's not kosher, right? If it has any one of the 4 simonim,
no, then there's no such thing. The Torah listed everything that's treif.
So what are we trying to do? What's our whole goal here? The Nesha teaches you that
you're asking the question you're asking is, we said that I think what you're asking is that we're in a strange situation here, that we said that the Torah told you these 24 things and there's no reason. And then we have a Mishnah that says there are simanim. So, well, what is it? Is it simanim or is it the? So that's what we said back on the last blot. We learned the Mishnah. It's a strange thing. The Mishnah says that it's me divrei seifrim, because we ultimately it seems like it's coming out that it is simanim that are used that the Torah does give us, but since they're come through, that's what the that's what the Gemara said. It comes from divrei seifrim. So
Right.
if we don't count it as simanim that the Torah told you. I think we're just saying that the Torah didn't clearly tell us the simanim, but we're deducing here all the simanim.
Yeah.
We're looking at the birds that the Torah said and seeing what simanim they have. How we know that these things are the simanim kashas? I guess because by analyzing, you have 24 birds, and we're saying what are their common characteristics, and we're looking at those and figuring out which simanim are make it not kosher. I don't know why. I guess maybe we'll see later in the Gemara why, let's say, for example, Dairis is always
There's just
tre-
always. I'm saying the Gemara was trying to analyze that. It was going for like an Ahmed, right? In other words, does it need one? Does it need two? Does it need three? Does it need four? Right? It
yeah.
needs to determine what. In other words, what was it? The Havamina was that if it had two of
The
the
Hav-
Simanim, it would be kosher or it wouldn't be kosher. What were we trying to figure out?
we're trying to figure out why the Torah had to tell you all these things. It means we learned that the Brisa is really learning it out. The Brisa said we're learning out from the Nesha, right? Essentially, we're learning out from the Nesha. The Nesha says has no kosher simanim. It's telling you that anything that has one kosher siman, that it's going to be kosher.
Even
That's
though that's
that's
not
the
true,
that's
even though that's not true, but that's what we're trying to figure out.
well, other than the things that are listed in the pasuk.
Right.
But for your guidance in the future, if you find something that you don't know what it is, if it
It
has
has
one siman and you know it's not the Erev and you know it's not the Paris Vosnia, as the case would be, if it has two, then you know it's not Erev. If you have one, you know it's
right.
not Paris Vosnia, then you could say it's kosher. That's and then it really all is learned out
Right.
from
So
the
in other words,
Nesher.
basically, I mean, excluding these 24, if you another bird species, right? If it has any one of the four kosher simanim, it's kosher.
Right. Except that it's not halacha l'maisa because we can't really identify the
Right.
simonim or the species, these 24 species really, I think we can't identify. Abba Rav Nachman, the bottom of Samach Aleph on the base. Abba Rav Nachman. Haya baki bahen ubeshmeisein, if you know which is the Paris v'oznia, oif haba b'simen echad, tar. Then if you find an oif with a single siman, you can go ahead and eat it. Because you know it has, you know the four simanim, you know it has on one siman of kashrus, and obvious, I guess, I guess that one siman of kashrus has to be that it's not dairis, right? Like hayabaki bahanu b'shmoisein, but if he doesn't know what they are, b'siman echad tamei, then if it has one siman, it's tamei. B'shnei simanim tar, ushiakar oirav. If it has two simanim, it's tar, as long as he recognizes the raven. In fact, the Mara oirav is sulai. He only has to recognize the oirav. He doesn't have to recognize anything else. But Tanya, oirav ze oirav. The Torah says oirav laminai. So oirav tells you the oirav laminai. What does laminai tell you? The zarzir is another bird that's similar to the oirav. Amalei Rabeliezer, Leanchik Far Tamrasa Shab Yehuda, Haya Eichlin I say, Nation Hanzefek. They would eat the this zarzir because it had a zefek, so it had a siman kashrus. I guess it had another siman that it wasn't a dirus. Amalahen Afhei Nasidin Litnes Hadin. They did the incorrect thing they're still going to get punished because the zarzir is also has two simanim and is treif. Davar acher, the mineu lahavi sanunis levena, to include the sanunis levena, the white sanunis, divrei Rebbe Eliezer. Instead of saying it's the zarzir, it's coming to tell you this other bird. They eat it because it has the siman that its gizzard can be peeled. So in any case, we see, according to one shita, the zarzir, according to the other shita, the sanunis levena is a bird that has two simone kashrus and is still possible. So either one of these are included as in the family of Erev. When we say he has to recognize the Erev, it means he has to include this second variety of Erev as well. Amar Amena. Amar Amena. Hilchasa, Oif Haba B'Simin. Oif Haba B'Simin Echad Tar. Halacha is an oif that has a single simin of kashrus is tar v'hu daras, as long as it's not daras. I guess he's presuming as well that you recognize that it's not the Paris Vozni. Amli Rav Ashi La'anena. Hadar of Nachman Mai. What about that he said? Well, I'm saying he said it as a rule. What about Rav Nachman that said that you have to recognize it's not the Paris Vozni? Yeah, Amli L'Shmieli Klemele Svieli. I don't hold like that. You don't have to. Ma'ika mishum Paris Vazniya. You have Rav Nachman said you have to recognize the Paris Vazniya in order to be able to eat something with single siman kashrus. Less nuba yishuv. Those are very uncommon. You'll never find them, so you don't have to be chayshish for them. They're birds that they're not around where people commonly live. So if you find a bird, unless you're tracking, I guess, in the jungles of Borneo, where they're known to reside, you don't have to concern yourself that you caught it by mistake. Amr Yehuda, Oif hamisaret kasher. This is not a simon. This is a name of a bird. This is a bird that scratches kasher lataris mitzayra. It could be used for the carbon mitzayra. Vizuhi sanunis levena. This is the sanunis levena, the white sanunis, that we had mentioned before, that Rebbe Eliezer said that the mineu is to include the sanunis levena, that it's also non-kosher, and the people would eat it, and he said they're going to yasid litin asadin. The Chum disagree. They say this is not a treifa bird, it's a regular, it's not included with the Erev or the Paris Vazniya. I don't remember what. No, the Erev. Yeah, it's not included with the Erev, and therefore it's kosher. Amar HaMeimar, B'chiyura Karsa Kuli Amalei Pligi Desharia. This Sanunis Lavana, if it has a white stomach, a white belly, everyone agrees that it's kosher. Kli Pligi B'diyuraika Karsa. They argue where it has a yellow belly. The machlokes is about the yellow-bellied sanunis levana. The hilchos of Rebbe Eliezer, the halacha is like Rebbe Eliezer that the yellow-bellied sanunis levana is also. Mazutru masni hachi, but the yoraika karsa kliyamalei pligi de also. Everyone agrees that if it's yellow belly, that it's also ki pligi the chiyura karsa. Where they argue about where it has a white belly. Rabbanan sharu. Rabbanan say it's muta v'helchus k'Rabbanan de sharu. According to the Mandamar, we're talking about they have a white stomach Pligi Hainu Diktani Zu Sanunis Levana. We understand why it's called the white Sanunis, because it has a white belly. Elamandam Abdi Roika Pligi Mai Zuhi Sanunis Levana. Why is it called white if it's yellow? It's like, well, Lafuki de Bati de Ochmi. It's not that it's white, but there are black Sanunuses, the house Sanunuses, like like our house birds. So those are black. So yellow compared to black, they call white. Amar Rechava Amar Yehuda. Tsil Pasul Mishum Tyron Bekasher Mishum Bnei Yaina. A tsil is a kind of bird that is not a tyron. The Torah talks about tyron, which are turtle doves, and it talks about bnei yaina, which are pigeons. Bnei yaina that are pigeons are always called bnei yaina because they have to be young, they have to be immature, and the tyron have to be mature. So if you have this bird called a tsil, it's included in the bnei yaina, and therefore it has to be young in order to be brought on the mizbech. Datzifi, the tyrant shal rechava, the bird called Datzifi, and the tyrant of the streets, ksherim mishum tyrant, psulim mishum bnei yaina. Those have to be mature. They can't be immature. They're included in the turtle doves. Masav Ranil bar Rav Katina. Kala ifis psulin paislim mechatas. All the birds pasel mechatas when they drink from it. Mechatas is the water that's used for the paraduma. It's water that can't have been used for anything else. Birds have a habit, you're not supposed to double dip with your celery in the dip. Birds have a habit of double dipping in their water. They'll drink a little bit of water and they'll let it dribble out of their mouth. So that water that dribbled out of their mouth is considered water that was already used, and therefore apostles the mechatas. So we say oifes paisla mechatas. Chutz min hayaina, except for the yaina neshemoitzetzes, because a yaina, which is a pigeon, when it drinks, it sucks it up and it doesn't leave anything to waste. Ve'misa lisni chutz mi yainu tsil. If this is, the Gemara seems to feel that this is an identifying characteristic of a yaina, of a pigeon. So if a tsil is included in the yaina, that it could be it's brought as a immature bird, it should also be included in this din of shemetzetzes, because the Gemara assumes it must have that same characteristic. Amar Zera. No, although the tsil is a yaina, it is a pigeon, and therefore it means it does, suck the water vigorously, but it also spits it out. So it's not like other birds that it just dribbles out. It is to some extent like the yaina, that it sucks up the water, but it sucks it up and it lets some go back, and therefore it passes the water for mechatas. Therefore, it's not included in this chutz min hayayna. Amr Yehuda. Hani kufshani tzutzani. Kufshani is a word for, Rashi says, tyron b'lashon arami. That's a word for tyron, for turtle doves. So these turtle dove tzutzini, ksherin legabi mizbeach, vehein hein tyron shel rechava. These are the tyron shel rechava. Meisvei ezev. The Torah says you have to use the erev for ezev for a bunch of things. You use it to smear the blood in Mitzrayim on the doorpost, and you use it for the avodah of the Mitzayra, and I think as well as for the paraduma. In any case, it has to be an ezev. Ezev yoin. You can't use an ezev yoin, which is a particular type of ezev. Ezev kochli, and not a blue ezev. Ezev raimi, and not a Roman ezev. Midbari, and not a midbar, a wild ezev. Loy kol ezav sheyesh lo shem levai. Any ezav that has any appellation attached to it is not a standard ezav. It can't be used for the things that the Torah dictated that says you have to use an ezav. So how can we say the kufshini tzutzini, which is a Torah tzutzini, is kosher l'gab mizbeach because it's a Torah and shel rechava? If we say that you can't use the ezav, which has a shem levi, which has any added name to it, why could we use this Torah? Rabaya kol shenishtan shmoi koydem matan Torah v'ekbi the Torah Allah yesh l'shem levi apostle. Those things that we listed by the ezav, those are all names that were added before Matan Torah. And the Torah just called it an ezav, not any of these other things, so they're not included. These are just all Tyran. They just got their separate names after Matan Torah based on where they're, just for whatever reason. But they were all called Tyran at the time of Matan Torah. Rav Amar, Hani Kufshini Tzutzini, Basrayu Stami Karalahu. Rabbi says differently. He says, even though we call them Tyran from Tzutzini, in Tzutzini they just call them Tyran. We're just identifying where they're from. Rav Yehuda. Hani Karzi de Bechilfi. These are grasshoppers that are found in the swamp. Urtush, sharu. They're mutter to eat as grasshoppers. Udebei karvi asiri. Those that are amongst the cabbages are also. Amar Ravina malkina layu mishum sheret. This is a vada. It's not a suffix, and you get malchus on it. It's not. We're 100% sure that the cabbage grasshoppers are not those that are identified as being kosher grasshoppers. But Amar of Yehuda. Tsar de Shari, Bar de Asir. These are different kinds of birds, kosher birds. So the Tsarda is kosher, but don't mix it up with the Barda, which is Asir. The Simonech Bar Mina, Simonech Bar Mina. To exclude the bar, the one with the bays, which is Barda, that is not kosher. Marda Sveika. The Marda itself is a suffix. We're not sure whether it's one of the things that are listed. We're going to say we'll see soon why it's a suffix. Amar Rav Ashi, Shmoyne Sveika. There are 8 things that are suffix. Chayva, Chayga, Suga, Harnuga, Tushlami, Umarda. Marda is included in it. Kuchlina, Ubarnafcha. Ma'isaf Kayu. What is the suffix on these 8 things? Oifis Tahirin Kurkavan Nikla, Utmein. I'm sorry, Oifis Tahirin Kurkavan Nikla. Utmein and Kurkavan Nikla. One difference, one of the simonim that you see a distinction between them is whether the gizzard can be peeled, and the tummy one can't be peeled. Vahani kurkavana niklaf b'sakina. These are not easily peeled by hand. You need to use a knife. You have to scrape it off. So, but it can be done. So the question is that considered to have the siman of kashrus that it could be peeled? There was this goose. A goose is certainly a kosher animal. That they weren't able to peel its gizzard. They left it out in the sun. We keep in the rafi iklif. Once it's softened in the sun, they were able to peel it. So Gemara Hasan ki rafi iklif biyada. No, that's not a raya. When it got softened, they were able to peel it with their hand. These 8, even after you soften it, you still need a knife to peel it, and therefore it's a question. Amar Abaya, Harnagoyla de Agma, the rooster of the swamp, Chad Mishmoina Sveikas. It's one of the 8 Sveikas. Bahainu Mardu. That was the one that was called a Mardu. Amar Papa, Tarnagoyla de Agma Asira. He disagrees. He says the Tanagalagma is also, it's not a suffix. The rooster of the swamp, Tanagolta dagma, the hen of the swamp, Sharia. That's mutter. V'simonech amoini v'loy amoinis. Amoini is also to love a bakal, but amoinis is allowed to go into the kal. Let's see, Taisus, Tanagos, the Agma Sharia, Tanus, the Agma Asira. Ein Lefarsh Hanekevim Muteris Zachar also. They're not the same species, and we're saying that the female is kosher and the male is not kosher. That would be ridiculous. Obviously, it's either kosher species or it's not. Obviously, the male and the female are both going to be kosher, but one is called the hen of the swamp and one is called the rooster of the swamp. They call the female version of it the rooster of the swamp as well. Darsh Marema, Tarnagolta de Agma, this hen of the swamp, Asira. It's also Chazuya the Dars of Achla, because I saw that it was being Daris and Eichel, and that is a incontrovertible siman of non-kosher. V'hainu Gerusa. And this is the same thing as the Gerusa. Amrav Shvar, Amarav, Shvar and Andarpata, Shari. This kind of bird called the Shvar Andarpata is mutter. Peres Andarpata asur. But the Peres, V'simanach Peres Rishia. There was someone called Peres who was a well-known Russia. So they could, in order to remember it, they called it. They said Peres is a Russia. To remember the Peres bird Andrapata is asur. Amar of Huna, Bunya Shari, Parua asur. The bird called Bunya is Shari, and the one called Parva is asur. V'simanach Parva Amgusha. Parva was a keshef macher. So to remind you that the parva is not kosher because he used a keshef macher. The bird parva is also possible. Amra papa mardoi zagid va'achel shari. The bird called the mera that stands up and eats is mutter. Zagid va'achel aser. The one that bends down and eats is possible. To remind you, so the bird that bows down is also Amar Shmuel, Shas Yechamra, the bird called the drinker of beer, is also V'simanach Shisi Yayim Psulun Lavaida. Someone who's drunk is Pasul Lavaida. Amar Shmuel, Mazga Chamra Asira, the thing called a bird that mixes wine, is Aser. Bas Mazga Chamra Shari, but the daughter of the wine mixer is mutter. V'simanach Yava Koyach Ben Mikoyach Av. The bas is kosher. The av is not. The plain mazga chamra is also. Amar Yehuda, shakitna aricha. The shakitna aricha shaki v'sumki sharia. Shakitna is a kind of bird. If it has long legs and is red, it's mutter. The simanach murzama. The murzama looks the same as that, has those same features. So this shakitna that has those features is mutter. Kutzi v'sumki asir. If it's short and red, it's also v'simanach nanas pasul. And the similar to that is a midget is pasul to do avoid in the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, the short shakitna is also pasul. Arichi sakevi yoroiki. If it has long legs and is green or yellow, it's also v'simanach yoroikim psulin, like we said before. If the lungs of an animal turn to green, it's pasul. So that'll be a reminder. The shakitna that is green or yellow is also pasul. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Thank you so much. All right, have
It's
a
going to
great
be a
day.
test
Have a
on
good
this.
day.
You have to know all the simanim, and also the things that to help you remember. It's not enough to know the right answers. You have to know the memory aids. Okay, take care. Have a good day.
Sure.
Good day, Kol Tov Shkoyach.